It is World War II. German Wehrmacht soldiers alongside American soldiers, with an Austrian resistance fighter and with some French political prisoners, are defending an Austrian castle against an attack of an SS panzergrenadier division. Sounds like a very interesting scenario for a great movie. But the fact is, this situation occurred in reality. Hello, this is Michel Wojatan Sorbet, and this is a new episode of Wojennik TV. The battle for Castle Itter, fought on the 5th of May 1945, was without any doubt one of the most interesting and most bizarre fought during the Second World War. On that occasion, German members of the Wehrmacht fought alongside American soldiers, a member of the Austrian resistance, and liberated French POWs. So quite an interesting mix of nations, of formations, trying to fight off a German attack launched by elements of an SS panzergrenadier division. Today I'd like to show you a review of a game which is focused on those events, released in 2019 by Dan Verssen Games. The game is called Castle Itter. During the unboxing of this game in Polish, I have said that this is the only documented battle in which Germans and Americans fought alongside during World War II. I was wrong. There was also a second one during Operation Cowboy in the last days of April 1945. But this is a totally different story. Today I will be showing you Castle Itter, a game which started a new series by Dan Verssen Games called Valiant Defense System, in which we can take control of fighters, of forces defending a given place, a given sector against enemy attacks. The second game released in this series was Pavlov's House, set in Stalingrad, and the third one, which was successfully funded on Kickstarter recently, will be Soldiers in Postmen's Uniforms, which is focusing on the first days of World War II, on the first day of World War II, and on the defense of the Polish Postal Service in Gdańsk against the German attacks. Castle Itter is set in Austria in the final days of World War II. This is primarily a solitaire game, but it is also possible to be played by two players, because we do have a competitive mode. The minimum age of the player is 13 years. And the time of play is somewhere around 45 to 60 minutes, but in my games it was rather closer to 75. Today I will be showing you the game. I will briefly explain how it works, what are its basic concepts, and at the end of the video I will give you my final recommendation. I will underline the strong but also the weaker points of this design. So let's start and let's take a closer look at Castle Itter. Here is Castle Itter prepared to start a new game. Castle Itter is mainly a solo game, but it is also possible to play it competitively. In such a case, one of the players will take control of the defenders of Castle Itter, whereas the second one will take control of the Panzergrenadier SS division trying to seize the castle. But I will be explaining how the solo mode as the main mode works. Now, obviously, we will be playing the defenders of Castle Itter. By doing so, we will take control of all the defenders which historically defended the castle, and those defenders included very different units. Both Wehrmacht infantrymen with some officers leading them, as well as American infantrymen with also American tank crew members, and additionally we can also take control of the French prisoners of war who were imprisoned in Castle Itter. Now, those were very famous persons, and those were hostages taken by the Nazi regime in order to subdue French willingness to fight or to work against the Nazi regime. So among those prisoners, we had, for instance, Jean Borotra, who was not a politician. He was a tennis player. He was one of the most successful tennis players in the 1930s, and he was imprisoned in Castle Itter. We had Maurice Gamelin, who was the commander-in-chief of the French forces during the disastrous May 1940 campaign of France. We had Paul Renaud, who was the French Prime Minister. Finally, we had also Michel Clemenceau, the son of Georges Clemenceau, the famous tiger. We had also other personalities, for instance, the sister of Charles de Gaulle. Those prisoners were not only liberated by the American troopers, they took active part in the defense of Castle Itter, defending the walls of the castle against the German attack. Jean Borotra, the tennis player, even managed to leave the castle to break through the German line, to escape to a local town and to bring some additional reinforcements. Among those reinforcements who can enter the game, who will enter the game after some time, are, for instance, Waltl, who is a member of the Austrian resistance, and we have also additional German troopers. So this is really quite a strange battle, because we have those German troopers who will be fighting their own German fellow soldiers, who were members of the elite of the SS panzergrenadier division. Now, this panzergrenadier division is composed of different units. We have standard riflemen, we have scouts, we have Sturmtrupps, we have also machine gunners and mortars, and all of them will be trying to close the distance to Castle Itter and to break through the walls of this castle in order to retake it, and probably in order to eliminate all the French and other prisoners which were inside. The map board itself represents the castle and its surroundings. Now, the castle, as you can see, is divided into different sectors, into different chambers, or into different locations. So we have, for instance, the Great Hall, we have the South Terrace, we have the Keep, we have the North Terrace. Each of those locations can store up to 4 units, because we can place up to 1 unit on each and every space. Each of those spaces is also colored, and this color corresponds to the spots on which the German troopers will be placed approaching Castle Itter from one of the entrances which are alongside the board. Those entrances are numbered from 2 to 12, and they correspond to the possible results of a 2-dice roll. So, as well as in Catan, we will be rolling dice, and obtaining, for instance, a 6 will mean that new German units will appear on the 6th entrance spot. Apart from the colors, we have also the numbers, which again will be used when determining some events such as disruption, such as attacks from German units. So, as you can see, in one location we can have several colors and several numbers. We can have, for instance, 2 ones, because the first one is associated to the purple spots, the second one is associated to the green spaces. As you can see, some of the spaces are double colored, which means that a unit placed on such a space can attack German units, both located on, for instance, green and yellow positions. But it is also more vulnerable to different attacks, because it can be attacked from 2 different colored locations. Each of those locations has also a certain endurance, a certain defense value, which will deteriorate during the game due to German attacks. But at the game start, it's 6. We have also additional locations which are to the east of the board, and those locations include firstly the gatehouse, in which we have also the place for 4 units, and we have the panzergrenadier, which is the Sherman used by the American troopers, by the American tank crew members, in order to defend the approach to Castle Itter. Panzergrenadier, as you can see, can also accommodate 4 crewmen, and if we place units having the T keyword indicating a tank crew member, we can benefit from the different bonuses which are printed onto those spots, which at most times will enable you to shoot 2 German units, both trying to eliminate them or trying to suppress them, and to limit the number of German units entering the playing area. The French prisoners start the game in a different location. This is the cellar, which, as you can see, adjoins the Great Hall. And one of our main objectives during the game will be to move those French units from the cellar to the main board in order to score more points, because French units at the game's end grant you points, 5 points if you manage to take them, to remove them from the cellar and to leave them somewhere on the main board. 1 point if they remain in the cellar. So, as you might expect, Castle Itter will be at the end of the game. The outcome of the game will be at the end determined by the number of victory points scored. But the game can finish abruptly if during the game, at any given point, one of the German units, which is next to Castle Itter, has to be moved closer to the castle, because it can't, it enters the castle and it automatically causes us to lose the game. But if such a situation doesn't occur, we will be playing up until the German deck of cards runs out of cards, because in the game we'll be using also a dedicated deck of cards in which we will be having cards indicating the German actions, because during our own activations we'll be activating our units, moving them, attacking, maybe also trying to recover or using special actions. But during the activation of German units we will be drawing cards from this deck, and those cards will indicate, for instance, that we have to place new units onto the board. In this case, we'll have always the information which type of unit will be entered, how many of them, and then we will have to roll dice in order to see from what entering location those units will enter the game. We can try to avoid this placement if we manage to place some suppression tokens onto the corresponding color entrance point. If this is the case, we can discard such tokens and try to roll a number equal or higher than the defense of the placed units. If we manage to roll such a number, the unit will not be placed onto the board. We manage to stop it. But if we fail, such a unit will be placed onto the board, and if the place where it should be put is already occupied, it will push all the units which are forward 1 space closer to the castle. If the spot where the moved unit was also occupied, it will be moved 1 spot closer to the castle. So placing units means that all the units which are connected to Castle Itter through those lines will be moved closer. Because those lines are connected one to another, it is possible that, for instance, we do have such a connection from the 10, from the 12 and from the 11, which at some point are connected. So, for instance, if all those spots are occupied by enemy units, rolling any number from 10 to 12 will cause us to move a unit closer to Castle Itter. So, knowing how those connections work, knowing what are the possible entrance points of the units is a huge factor which we have to take into consideration during the game. At the game start, as you can see, the board is only occupied by German units, but we do have to place our own defenders. During the first few turns, we have to use our own defenders in order to place them onto empty spots and take some actions. The defenders have two parameters, which are the attack value and the suppress value. We can use our unit in order to both attack an enemy unit, which means that we try to liquidate it, we try to eliminate it from the board, or we can place suppression tokens, as I explained earlier. A unit which uses its action is flipped over to its exhausted side, and it remains exhausted until we use it in order to recover, so to regain its active status. Some units have some keywords. For instance, M indicates low morale. The Wehrmacht troopers had low morale and they flee the battlefield if they are in a location where another unit is eliminated, and unless there is an officer, so the keyword officer is very important, in the same location. We have units having the command keyword, which enables to actively activate, to give orders to all the units which are present in the same location. We have some special keywords such as the T, as I explained earlier. Those are the tank crew members keywords. We have a sacrifice keyword. Finally, Borotra has the escape keyword, which enables him to try to flee the castle and to bring reinforcements. If he manages to do so, we can use a special card, which is the 142nd Infantry Regiment. We shuffle it into some of the cards in the bottom of the deck, and we can, in such a way, shorten the game, enabling us to survive the German onslaught and to pass to the final scoring. So, in general, we will use 5 actions during our turn, then we will draw 3 cards from the German deck. We will resolve their effects, which at most times will be the placement of the units, but sometimes those will be attacks against specific locations. If the locations are reduced, their endurance is lower and it grants lower protection to units present at such a location. We have other cards enabling the Germans to disrupt the defenders or to, as I said earlier, attack specific locations. We have also some very powerful sniper cards which will cause us to instantly lose units. We have finally a special reinforcements cards which enables us to use all the 3 additional units which are put aside during the game setup. Now, those are the basic rules. We have some optional rules which are possible to be used. We have a random setup possibility. We have also the possibility of using a second deck of cards, which are the tactics cards. In general, when using those cards, we will be drawing cards from this deck, and those cards will remain active for a certain time, giving additional bonuses to the German troops attacking the castle. Those cards, as well as the standard deck, are in increasing difficulty. So we start with some lesser ones and then passing through the different stages of the siege: initial assault, breach the defense, storm unleashed, final assault. The difficulty of those cards will increase. We have some special German units, such as the mortars and the machine gunners, which will be placed. They won't be moving forward any new units, but they will be shooting against the defenders, trying to disrupt them and maybe to eliminate them. Because if a defending unit becomes disrupted, if it gets disrupted once more, it is removed from the board. Shooting at enemies is extremely easy. We use the attack factor of the shooting unit, which at most times will be 1. Sometimes it will be boosted due to the presence of French prisoners who have the inspire keyword, and we have to obtain at least 1 result equal or higher than the defense level of the unit that we are shooting at. So those are basically it, all the key elements of Castle Itter. Now I'd like to invite you to the final part of this video, during which I will tell you what I think about this game, what are in my opinion its strong but also the weaker points. So let's pass to this conclusion. Castle Itter from Dan Verssen Games was a game that I was really eager to try, and because of 2 main reasons. The first is that I am an extremely big fan of solitaire war games. I like war games, I like solitaire games, and if you take a look at my playlists on my channel, you can see that most of the games that I review are solitaire games or have a solo mode, because I do like to play solitaire. The second reason is the subject, is the topic of the game. I love games which are focused on extremely interesting, bizarre or strange situations. I like games covering not very popular topics, because I do believe that our hobby does not need any more games about Normandy, about Stalingrad. Of course, there are some new gems published, but I do prefer to discover games covering more obscure or less frequently visited topics. And the battle for Castle Itter was such an extremely interesting, such an extremely bizarre situation that it deserved to have a dedicated game. Thanks to Dan Verssen Games and David Thompson, we do have such a game, and those were the two reasons why I absolutely wanted to test the game. So now, what I liked in this title. The first thing is, of course, its topic, is its subject, but I'll start with the elements of the game. Firstly, I like the components of the game. I believe they are very functional. Sometimes games come with components which are not very functional, which are designed in such a way that it is difficult to use them during gameplay. Castle Itter is a relatively easy game to play, so we do not have overly complicated, extremely complicated rules. We do not have tons of exceptions. We have a well-written rule book. We have some small examples. We have a list of all the capacities on player aids. I do believe that all those information which are required to play are well-written, are well-prepared. After reading the rules, I didn't have any questions concerning how the game works. During my first play, I used the player aids, I used the rules in order to see how some specific cards, how some specific situations work, but I found everything that I was looking for in the rulebook. The other elements, the map is extremely functional. It is maybe not the prettiest one, but it is presented in such a way that all the information are crystal clear. The only problem that I had is the fact that when you place the initial riflemen or then the new forces arriving on the map, if you want to place them directly on the spot where they are spawned, you will cover the number. So I placed them always next to the spot. This is not a problem. This is maybe something which a little bit bothered me, because I like very elegant ways of putting some information, some counters on the map. I do not like when information are hidden, and in this case maybe this was a small hindrance, but not something which would be a problem. The other elements, so the dice were here, no comment at all. The cards were, well, Dan Verssen Games sometimes has some strange artwork on cards, and for instance, in 1500 The New World, I wasn't a fan of the artwork at all. In Down in Flames, the art is okay, but nothing exceptional. So Dan Verssen Games sometimes has this small problem, in my opinion, concerning the quality of the artwork on the cards. In Castle Itter, you do not have any artwork on the cards, but I do like the colors used on tactic cards. I do like the colors used on the two special cards which are in the standard deck, because we do have the reinforcements cards. We have the 144th American Infantry Regiment card. I like the artwork, I like the colors used. Additionally, I like the font, I like the way how the information on those cards was presented. Here they are crystal clear again. I think they are extremely well laid out. It's not a thing which I would be scratching my head at. So here, no typos. Also, I think they are of a high quality. The small element which comes in my copy was an addition of additional cubes, which were meant to be with another game, but this is a mistake which has no impact on gameplay. Maybe I would prefer to have one big player aid sheet and not a few ones, but this is again a thing which isn't a real problem. After my first 2 games, I stopped using them because the mechanics are really quite easy to understand and to apply. So after some play, those player aids aren't useful because you do know how to interpret some mechanics. So the components, I'd say this game is really nice. It's not very pretty, it's not exceptional when it comes to the quality, but it is very functional, and at the same time it is quite okay. Then we have the setting, then we have the mechanics and their correlation with the subject of the game. And here I must say that both David Thompson and DVG made a wonderful job. I love the way how some small elements were put together and implemented in the game in order to simulate how the battle for Castle Itter looked like. When playing this game, we have this feeling of being overwhelmed by attackers coming from each side. We have those small elements which make you instantly feel of the battle for Castle Itter if you know the story. So you have the additional location, which is the Sherman tank, the Bezontengeni. I love the idea to include it as a separate location. You have the French POWs who inspire the defenders, so who give additional dice or additional suppress tokens. And this is all about the story, because historically the battle for Castle Itter, from the SS perspective, was a battle in order to seize the castle and to eliminate the prisoners. So in fact the defenders of the castle fought not only for their own survival, but also to defend those POWs. And those POWs didn't just defend, didn't just wait for the outcome of the battle. They took active part in the defense. So they do have the opportunity, the possibility to put some suppressed tokens, but they also inspire over defenders. I think it's a very clever idea also to indicate how important those counters are. They grant you additional points at the game's end, so you do have to protect them at all cost. We have also the special Jean Borotra token. This defender is extremely important because it is the only counter, it is the only defender in the game who can escape the castle, but not just to be safe, not just to run for safety. He will run to bring reinforcements, to bring help. And if you manage to secure his way through the German lines, if he escapes successfully, you can use the additional special card, shuffle it in the bottom of the deck, and you can have a shorter game, enabling you to score possibly more points. A very interesting small idea which I really like. Apart from those additional small historical elements, I would like to say a few words about the mechanics of the game. I think it's a game quite simple, but extremely elegant when it comes to the mechanical choices, because the game is really very easy to learn. It is logical. At the same time, you have those small elements which make you constantly decide how to locate your men, on what spots to locate your men, who to command, who to use in a given situation. Do I want to attack or do I want to put suppress tokens? Do I want to stay in Bezontengeni and believe that the tank won't be destroyed during this turn, or do I want to retreat? So you do have a lot of interesting decisions, and being constantly attacked from different sides requires to be very agile, requires also to sometimes make sacrifices, sometimes to make difficult decisions, when to bring the French prisoners to the game, how to use your very precious 5 actions. Those are all very interesting decisions. I like the idea of dividing the defense sectors into different zones, which are strictly related one to another, and which sometimes have have spots of different colors. So sometimes you will be occupying such a space, sometimes you will be able to shoot at different approach routes, but at the same time you'll be more vulnerable to German attacks. So you do have to find a certain balance between benefits and dangers which are related to being at a given location. This is not the first tower defense game, because I could say that this is a tower defense game. This is not the first one which I played. This is not also a game which has a revolutionary system. I have had the pleasure to play, for instance, Cold War Cromwell, which is set on British soil after the hypothetical Sea Lion operation, when also defenders of a small village are defending against German attacks coming from all sides. So I had some analogies while playing this game. So the system itself is not extremely innovative, but it is very flexible. It is a system which can be easily adapted to over conflicts, and adding some small elements can give you the possibility to really replay many different historical battles. Pavlov's House is a nice exception. Again, Soldiers in Postman's Uniforms, the third game in this series, is another one. This is a very flexible, a very interesting system which can be again used to simulate different battles. I like the fact that we have some additional playing modes in the game. We have also the competitive mode, which allows you to play Castle Itter by two players. You have the tactics cards, which can be used in order to again enhance your playing experience, to increase the level of difficulty. You have some other additional variants. For instance, the variable starting variant, where the German troops are located in the quality of the German troops starting the game is a little bit different from the standard one. So all those elements are the elements which I really like in Castle Itter, which in my opinion are well linked together, which make this game entertaining, which make this game climatic, and at the same time quite easy to understand, quite easy to play. The things that I like less are as follows. The first one will be related to the second one, because those two are related to dice rolling. Now, the first thing is that I do not have anything against dice rolling. I like games in which we have dice. I like games in which we roll dice a lot, but I do know that having games which primarily focus on dice rolling are problematic for some players, and again have also a very important luck factor inside. And in Castle Itter it will also be the case. So many of the game's mechanics are based on dice rolling. You will be rolling dice in order to see if your attack was successful. You will roll dice if you draw a spawn card, so you will first roll 2 dice to see where the German units will appear. Then you will at most times discard a suppressed token in order to try to roll a die to stop the German from entering the board. Then you will re-roll your dice in order to see where the second German counter appears, or if you happen to draw a flag or a disruption card, you will roll dice in order to see what location is targeted, what is the result of the fire, and you will be rolling dice constantly. And here, those two things which are problematic in my opinion. Firstly, it will be quite random at times, and it will influence the game's outcome. It will influence the game's difficulty level, because you can have a streak of very lucky dice rolls, but you can have also a streak of very unfortunate dice rolls. Secondly, rolling those dice constantly will make the game more procedural, more mechanical than it could have been if some other mechanics were applied. So you will be at some point rolling those dice mechanically without concentrating on the story evolving, and this also might be problematic because at the game start you will be planning ahead, you will be living the battle, you will be making difficult decisions, but after some dice rolling you will be feeling that you are just racing against time. You want to roll the dice the quicker possible in order to see the outcome. I had this perspective during my games. The third thing, which I think is somewhat sad that it was not included or more expanded in the game, is its historical aspect, is its educational value. Because what I really enjoy in historical games, what I am always looking very closely at in war games, is the historical perspective, is the historical commentary which is included in a game. I very often read those information about the setting of the battle, about the reasons of the battle, about the consequences, of course about how the battle also evolved. And in Castle Itter we do not have such a commentary. Castle Itter was such an intriguing battle that it deserved to be written about. It deserved to have even a small passage concerning how the battle went, because the only thing that we have in this game which describes the battle are the information on the backside of the box, and apart that we have some small information which are included in the game, but we do not even know who was de la Roque or who was Gamelin. Of course we know those persons, but for some persons who do not exactly know who they were, they will be only anonymous French POWs. I think the game deserved to receive additional historical explanation concerning both the setting of the battle, maybe focused on the participants. I would really enjoy such a read. I would like that. I would love to receive in a historical game more than just a game, also an explanation, an educational addition. I'd like to see some designer's notes about how the game was created, what were the main reasons of implementing some mechanics. All those elements are absent from Castle Itter, and in my opinion it is a little bit sad. Concluding, Castle Itter, released by Dan Verssen Games, designed by David Thompson, is in my opinion an entertaining, interesting game about an extremely interesting battle. It is quite easy, quite accessible, quite dynamic and quite climatic, using functional components, lacking a more precious historical approach and historical educational value, including a lot of dice rolling, which might be problematic for some of you. Even though I really enjoyed this game, I really enjoyed the system, I think it's a very interesting system which can be used in different settings, and it will surely be used, it will surely be explored. Due to some small tweaks to the construction of the map boards, each time, each game will be a little bit different and will give you a different feeling. This was the review of Castle Itter by Dan Verssen Games. Thank you a lot for watching this video. I invite you also to take a look at our other videos. Take also a look at our Facebook and Instagram accounts. I wish you a terrific day and see you next time.